This is the console application exercise in C#. I have the solution open here in Visual Studio. I've got the README file. Let's run through this really fast. Objective 1, we want to implement the functionality as a console application. We're going to open up the solution file if you haven't done that already. We want to implement the use case, so given the user is prompted to enter input into the screen, so there'll be some prompt, will say, hey, please type something. When the user enters the input and hits the enter key, the system will reverse the text and show that back to the user, and then we'll wait for the user to hit enter one more time, and then we'll close the application. We'll start with our test as we typically do, use that to drive our implementation. Once that's done, we'll move on to Objective 2, which will be pretty quick. So let's start off with the test. Let me go ahead and open these up. We will expand, and I'm just going to run our test here. We should get a failure. Build succeeded, that's good. And there we go, we've got our failure. We've got a method not implemented. Let's go ahead and see the test method itself. Let's see what's happening here. So inside this code, we are creating a variable user interface. We're setting it equal to a new instance of the AI user interface class. The AI user interface, think of it as an automated user for testing purposes. Since the test runs in a way that we're not going to have an actual user that can type something, we're going to use this automated user to do the typing for us. So we're going to set the text to type when prompted property to the word testing. So when prompted, the AI user interface is going to type the word testing when the application asks for it. We then create our mirror application given the user interface, and then we call run. At the end of it, we'll get the lines to display to the user. So these are the lines that they saw. This is the output. We're going to make sure there were 3 of those, and then we're going to make sure those values are enter the text reverse, the word testing in reverse, and then press enter to close the application. So we do have a failure, and it's failing right now in the mirror application class. Actually, it's failing before that, but let's go ahead and start on the run method, which is the method under test. This is the last method right before the assertions, and it's the main method that's going to be doing all the work. We want our run method to implement, and I'm going to go ahead and just kill these throw new non-implemented exceptions. We want this run method to implement our use case. So thinking through this again, given the user is prompted to enter, so we need to prompt the user to type some text. So let's start with that. Now we want to use this user interface to actually deal with the user instead of going directly to the console. The reason for that is testing purposes. If you try using the console, you'll find that it's very difficult to get this to pass, so you don't want to use the console class here. So we're going to use the user interface. In order to use that, I need to hold on to it into a field. So we'll say this underscore user interface equals user interface. This variable is not available down in the run method, so we're going to create a field for this. Let's go ahead and do that. Fields, private, read-only string, no, not string, user interface. So the type is the same as the incoming type, capital U, user interface. There's our field. Now that we have that, we can go to the run method. And again, we want to prompt the user to enter input into the screen. So we'll say this underscore user interface, and let's just say write line. So we'll write this out to the screen. So we'll write line to the screen, type something. So now that we've got that, we're going to wait for the user to hit enter, and we're going to read the context, or the contents that they type. So we'll say var text equals, and I'm going to actually say, instead of var, we'll say string, because I know it's going to be a string. That's going to help us with some of the tools that we're going to use later on. This user interface, and we'll say read line. So we'll say read the line, once enter is hit, tell me what was typed in. Now we need to reverse the text and display it to the user. So we'll just create a variable string reversed text equals text dot reverse dot toArray, and then we'll just put all this into a string. And now we're going to display this. Now we already have a method to display to the user, so I'm going to reuse the write line method. This underscore user interface dot write line reverse text. And then finally, the system waits for the user to hit enter before closing the application. So I'll tell the user one more statement. So we'll say user interface write line again, and we'll say press enter when done. And then finally, this user interface, and we'll do read line again. Now we're not putting this one into a variable because we don't care what they typed. We just want to wait until they hit enter. So this is the policy for our code. This is the one method that has all of our use case as code. Now what we need to do, we can see the red squiggles, we need to get this to pass. So we're going to generate methods on the user interface type, the interface here. I'm going to use IntelliSense here to do that. So I'll hit control period, and I'm going to generate method. I can just hit enter because it's highlighted. I can click it with my mouse, but I like the keyboard. It helps me keep my hands on the keyboard so I don't have to go back and forth between the mouse and the keyboard. So that'll generate that method. And then read line, same thing, control period, we're going to generate the method, read line, there it is. So now we get rid of all the red squiggles. Now we're not passing yet. In fact, we're not even compiling because the user interface type has a problem. So let's go to definition. Actually, it's not the user interface. It's the AI user interface. But the user interface, I want to look at this really fast. We'll notice that it created a couple of methods. These are abstract methods. They don't have method bodies. It just ends in a semicolon. I do want to change this string v here. V is not a very good name, so I'm going to rename the variable. We'll just say, I could call it message, I could call it text, I could call it contents. I'll just say text. This is the text to write to the screen, to the user. Okay, we have that. If I do a build really fast, Control-Shift-B, I'm going to see that I've got some errors here. And I'm going to start with the AI user interface. The error is these two methods on the user interface are not implemented in the AI user interface. So we need to copy those methods over. So I can go back to the user interface, copy this and paste it, or I can let Visual Studio help me. So again, I've got the red squiggle highlighted or selected, Control period, and it'll say, do you want to implement the interface? And that's exactly what I want. So I'll hit enter. And it's going to add those methods for me so that I can implement those methods. I'm going to alphabetize these really fast. And now we're ready to implement this class in order to make it work, because the test is still not running. We do have another problem, and that's in the console app class. Same thing, the console user interface needs to implement this as well. I'm going to come back to this once we get to the console side of things. I'm just going to implement it so we compile. So back in the AI user interface, I need to talk through a couple of things. So the lines displayed to user and the right line are paired together. So when we write a line, that's going to go into the lines displayed to user. Similarly, read line and text typed when prompted are going to tie together. So whatever the text to type was when prompted, we need to make sure the read line is going to return that value. So let's get to implementing these once we've got these here. The text to type, actually these are properties and not methods. Let me rearrange these really fast. So these are my methods, these are my properties. So my text to type when prompted, this needs to be a field. I need to have a backing field. So the easiest way to do this, since it's a getter and a setter, is to just do an automatic get set property. So there's my get set. And now what I need to do on read line is I need to return the text to type when prompted. So I'll just say this dot text to type when prompted. That creates the round trip. So the test calls this property, and then the actual code, the run method, calls this method. So that'll make sure we get the text that we want to type, which is the word testing. Now the lines displayed to user and write line, these are going to go together. So let me start off with the getter up here. So I need to turn this into a get property, and it's going to need to be a string. So I'll do a get only and set this equal to a new array or new list, a new empty list. So this is some C# syntactic sugar that we can use to create this. So it's a read only property that is an empty list. And then our method here, write line, we're going to simply add to that. So we'll say this lines displayed add text. So we just add the text to that list. So at this point, let's run our test and let's see if we've got a passing test now, or if I missed something. All right, so I did miss something. Okay, so what I've got going on here is the value of the text does not match what I said we were going to do. So the test is saying it should be enter the text to reverse, but what I typed in is type something. I need these to match. So all I need to do is just replace this. Same thing on the next line down below. I want to say press enter to close the application. So we'll replace press enter when done. Now let me run the test. And we have a pass. So the test is now passing. Now in order to get the console application to actually run, we are going to need to go back to the console user interface. So let me go back to this class really fast. The console user interface is the console version of the user interface type. We're going to simply pass these through to the console. So all I need to do here is read line is going to be console.readline, and write line is going to be, you guessed it, console.writeline. So we're simply passing these through directly to the console. Now that we have this working, I should be able to run in the second objective. So we'll go to the second objective. We want to open the command prompt, the cmd.exe, and you can do that from Windows. I'm going to do that in the terminal here. We'll find the exe file and then run that. So the console app, you can see it bolded. That's the application itself that we need to run. So let me just build the solution really fast to make sure the output's available. I'm going to right click on the property, and towards the bottom there's open in terminal. This is going to open up a terminal. Let me move my big face. And here I need to go into the folder where it exists. So it's in the bin folder. So I'm going to cd bin dir, and then we can see there's a debug folder. So I'm going to go to the debug folder, dir, net 8.0. So that's the version. So I'm going to dir into that. Oops, cd net 8.0, and now they're into that. And now we can see here is the exe file, mirrorconsole.exe. So now let me just run mirrorconsole.exe. We'll run this, and it says enter the text to reverse. This is our program running. So this is Chad's awesome test. There it is. There's the reverse of it. Press enter to close. That concludes the console application in C#.